Okay, we're going to call to order the Ojai Parks and Recreation Commission Thursday, July 2nd, 2020 regular meeting, and it is 6:05. Renee, would you do roll call, please?
Roll call. Chair Entner.
Here.
Vice Chair Taylor.
Present.
Commissioner Firestone.
Here.
Commissioner Jacobson.
Present.
And Youth Commissioner Duenas is absent.
Okay. James, could you give us the flag, please, in council chambers? Okay. Okay, if you could join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance
I
to
pledge
the
allegiance to the flag of the
One
United
nation.
States of America.
Okay.
And
One
to the
nation.
republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sorry, that was very confusing.
The best part.
But we got through it. Okay, and so I think we have quite a few public comments. Are those going now, Renee, or are those specific to something we're talking about?
Correct. So we'll move public comments and we'll discuss it now. This item is being considered by the City Council about pickleball, and only an informational report will be provided once we get to the item of pickleball. So right now, every commissioner was sent, we have a total of 12 public comments that were emailed to us. And they were sent this afternoon so that you had time to review.
Okay, as far as I don't think we need to read them all.
Go ahead. No action will be taken tonight. So if you'd like to read them out loud, you have the choice to, but there's no, the item doesn't have to be because it is not a public hearing. So you have the choice.
I was thinking I would just kind of, a lot of them, about 10 of them have a very similar, has everyone had the time to read them? Yeah, okay. Most of them had a similar theme, and so I thought I would just talk about those. There were positive comments about pickleball, and there was a consistent desire on the pickleball player part of the 10 people who communicated with us that they would like to have the same hours as tennis as their playtime. And they think that their program for pickleball should be modeled after the existing tennis program. And they mostly were very excited about the opportunity and talking about the benefits of pickleball and mostly along a very positive vein about the whole pickleball program and the courts. And then we had one other that was this, had the same things to say, and then had some concerns about some undesirable things happening around the pickleball courts while pickleball court players were there. And those are being forwarded on, I believe, by Renee to the sheriff's department.
Police.
Yes. So they're being made aware of those concerns and the things that are going on that shouldn't be going on there. So we appreciate that feedback as well. And that was
that one email was sent to both the chief of police and public works.
And you forwarded it on. Great. Did anyone else have anything from their reading that they wanted to share about the public comments? Okay. All right. Then I don't believe we're going to have a police report tonight.
That is correct.
Yes. And so we are on to the public works report. And are you presenting on that one for us?
Yes, you have two reports in front of you. One is on the funding and the other one's on the court light updates. Have you had a chance to read them?
Yeah.
And
yes.
Do you have any questions? It specifies where the funding came from, and it also talks about the LED, and it talks about the hell lights for the light project and for the courts, sports courts. Do you have any questions?
So I had requested the rationale for not using LED lighting. So thank you for putting that together. I didn't have time to kind of fact check the whole thing, but and I understand like this project is going on. It's kind of too late, but I don't really agree with what's in the write-up. For example, they mention only 2 baseball stadiums are using LED lights, and I just did an internet search, and it looks like more than half are using LED lights. So I feel like there's like this kind of idea about LED lights that is 5 or 10 years old, and the technology has changed quite a bit in that time. And I think it's unfortunate. I don't get the sense that we're getting up-to-date information and making decisions based on it. And it's like they mentioned in the memo, they use half of the energy of the metal halide lamps.
But doesn't it also say that they requires twice as many lights?
It does, but this report also, the very last bullet point, talks about the sports courts, and that Public Works is planning LED lighting for the baseball and futsal field.
Right, basketball and futsal. I know the memo says baseball, but
it is meant to read basketball because it's specific, I believe, just to the sports court.
But so it does talk about LED lighting for that project.
Yeah, I mean,
the support for the sports court and not for the others. I'm confused on that approach.
So I can review and read the report. The existing lights or it should be basketball fields at Sarzati Park are being replaced with, so this is again about the lights, are being replaced with metal halides, which is the same as existing. The reason is LED fixtures do not provide the same evenly spread washed light, and the project would need additional poles added to the replacement project to spread the light. In addition, more poles would be required for the outfield, which is determined not practical for the job, as Field 2 backs up to the job.
No, I read the report, Renee. I'm just asking, I'm confused on the mixed support. I was just asking for some clarification. You're supportive of them for the sports court, but not for the softball fields. Is that correct?
Greg had written and supported this report, so I don't have I may not have additional answers to the questions, but as far as I know, the light pole replacement was already approved by council.
I also think the lighting,
existing type of like in kind replacement. Is that what you're saying?
I'm sorry, you're not coming out clear in my audio.
For a like in kind replacement, that's what council approved, or was it just not discussed at all?
I don't have the specific minutes on me for that committee meeting that it was discussed.
Okay.
I think the other concern was, and they talk about it again in this report, is the futsal sport courts are very simple lighting. I mean, in a very small space, it's a very straightforward project. The fields are a lot more complex, and that you have 2 separate fields that are used for multiple use. So you need to basically cover that whole huge area without impeding on any of the middle of the fields, because we use it for soccer. So if you were to start to, this is what I've been told, and I'm not a lighting specialist, so I can't weigh in on the veracity of the analysis, but that to use the LEDs, you'd have to add additional poles within the fields, which for Sarzati Park would be a huge drawback because we lose the flexibility of use that we have. And then in the report, it talks about the 2 outfields backing up to each other. I'm less clear on how that would work, but the implication is that there would be poles there that would be problematic. So I think the futsal sports court is a very straightforward use of the LEDs and makes absolute sense, and I don't think there's a lot of complexity to that. Whereas the whole larger lighting of all of the fields becomes more complicated, and if these numbers are white, considerably more expensive. Oh, Greg is here.
Okay.
He's here.
Hi, good evening.
Thank you for saying that. That makes sense to me. I just was curious. I didn't understand the difference between the 2 areas. So thanks for clarifying.
Okay. Greg, jump in and tell us what you think.
Right. Hi. Good evening. Yep. No, I think you've got a pretty good recap there. It was in the report, that it would have been ideal, of course, to upgrade to LED when possible. But for the existing replacement of lights, the poles were the main initial issue. But if we were going to go to LED, we had to go to a more frequent, more numerous poles to get the lighting. And then we had to also add them in the outfield, like you're saying. So there was two issues there. So we really just focused on getting steel poles in. And the big benefit that's I think is highlighted in the report also is the newer metal halide lights have such more efficient, effective reflectors that the efficiency increased significantly. And so LED are more efficient generally, but in outfield lights, they haven't been that much more effective because of the way you've got to almost double the number of lights. You don't save that much energy. And so our energy savings wasn't going to be much by going to LED if we, actually spent the hundreds of thousands of dollars to do it. And by going to metal halide, we had pretty significant, the report has it was a 25 or 30% increase by the increased reflectivity. So at least we had a nice step forward, in the interim. And then, of course, the futsal multi-use courts will have LED, presuming our budget can handle it. And we'll go ahead and make that significant step when we go to those courts.
And I also just wanted to highlight they are night sky compliant now, which was an issue before, and the current ones are not, correct?
That's correct.
So does any other commissioners have questions, comments?
I think I just, on this issue of the light spreading and whatnot, I got the impression from when this came up a couple of years ago or a year ago that the concern was that you couldn't get the same light density, so you need more poles because you couldn't have the same amount of light per pole. And I don't know how up to date our information is, and that was kind of my question. Was I know LEDs have gotten a lot more efficacious in the past couple of years, and I don't know if that's kind of part of the continuous decision making, or that's just like we found that out a few years ago and then we just moved forward with what we had.
Can I respond to that?
Yeah.
Yep. And there does seem to be a constant evolution in the LED technology, and it's just improving. I know the streetlights years ago, there was a big pushback because they were in that really bright white light. They couldn't go to the more softer light like the high pressure. So now they're coming down towards that. They're evolving towards it. There's still a lot of complaints to the brightness of them. And these lights have gotten better, but only, I think a good example we had was only two currently when we were talking with Musco and the other pro company we dealt with on LED lights, is that only two national baseball league, I'm not sure if I'm saying that, I'm trying to think of the pro baseball league, only two of the fields have gone to LED, and the outfielders do complain about it. They they have problems dealing with that light, and so it's not like it's come around that well. And the one field that's done better had a full circumference retractable roof, and they were able to really disperse the lights all across that roof area, and that's the better one. The other one, the outfielders complain about losing the ball.
Greg, we're losing you. Greg, can you hear me? Okay.
Okay. I think we might have lost Greg. I think if there's more discussion, let's have it. But on the other hand, I think they've moved forward and allocated the funding. I think a lot of this was due to safety of the poles. And so the pole replacement, the lights are coming with that. But I think that had some, if Greg were here, some more immediacy to getting that done. And that's why the project also is moving forward. But I appreciate Ryan's comments. And I think it is something we should keep focused on as we come into new lighting projects. And I do understand the concern that we have, we're doing such a large change and not taking advantage of possible technology. And I hear what you're saying, and I would love to hear some more answers to that too.
Okay. Did you guys lose me for a bit there in that
We did.
response? Sorry. Okay. Yeah. Well, I think you've got it though. But really, the existing lights, we really, even right now, we reviewed it when we put it out, before we put it out to bid. That's still the best option for us. But as you're saying, for the future courts coming up, LED for a new system is the way to go.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Greg. Thank you for coming and joining on that.
Okay, great. And if you didn't hear that one part, it is interesting that the National Baseball League, there's only two courts.
We actually got that part, but I
you did get that.
Yes, thank you.
You might want to fact check that, Greg. I was looking online. It looks like more than half of them are, from what I could tell.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll talk to my source on that too to find out if that's old data. You're saying half of the National Baseball League fields are LED now?
Major League Baseball.
Major League Baseball, right? Yeah. Okay. All right. I'll check on why my source.
Okay. And then before we let Greg go, were there any questions about, we had asked for clarification on funding on the sports court. It seems pretty straightforward, but if anybody has any questions, any commissioners? Okay. Doesn't look like it. So thanks, Greg. Thanks for zooming in.
Okay, terrific. Have a good night. Thank you.
You too. Take care. Okay, so moving on to item 6, which is the City Council Liaison Report. I don't think we have a City Councilor present. So we'll move on to consent. And the only item on our consent calendar tonight are our meeting minutes from the June 4th, 2020 meeting minutes. Does anybody have any comments, corrections, or changes?
I move for approval as is.
Okay, and Ryan seconded that. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Consent calendar is passed. On to number 8, which is our presentation actions and discussion items. And the first is an update on COVID-19 activities.
So for the recreation department, we had a day camp, a small day camp with 3 kids last week. They thoroughly enjoyed it. We took all safety precautions. Of course, our attestation plan is in and our prevention plan. And this week, we really needed at least 8, and we only had, it ended up being 6. So we're not going to conduct camp next week. We will continue to take a wait list and also continue to monitor the situation and the safety aspects of the all-day camp. For specialty camps, there are 5, actually there's 3 adult specialty classes going on at night here at the Boyd Center once a week. There's Tai Chi, it has 8, Kung Fu only has 2, and Aikido has 2. They're outside with the equipment, no contact. And we have 1 youth class starting up for Starlight Dance Academy. It's held at their academy. It does not begin until July 15th. So again, we're still monitoring to see where California and where Ventura County is going with what is able to be offered. And then really the only camp we have other than trying to start an all-day camp was the Lego camps. The next Lego camp would begin July 27th. We only have 1 person enrolled, so I'm not sure if that's going to take place. The outdoor tennis is doing really well. We have 16 people enrolled for 3 classes, so we do not let more than 10 in. So it's actually one class of 5 once a week, another class of 5 once a week, and another class of 6 once a week, which totals 16. So tennis is doing really well. And do you have any questions about other things with COVID related? And
It's all moving so fast. It's hard to keep up.
Any lessons learned from camp that you did?
you're breaking up, Brian. I'm sorry.
I was asking any lessons learned from the week of camp that you did have?
We were really prepared with our prevention plan, and I had been working on it for a couple of months, which was mirrored from the National YMCA and the CDC. So when the the parents were not allowed inside. The kids came up to the front only outside, and we did a health screening and temperature checks. And then as soon as they walked in, we hand sanitized them. Then they walked to the restrooms, washed their hands, and then they were able to go to the game room. And the day was pretty structured. Every time they moved from, and they were wearing masks, the kids, we had a 5-year-old that did very, very well with wearing his mask all the time. So very proud of that child. And of course, the other kids did great. And they did really well wearing their masks. Anytime they moved out of a room to outside, we always had them disinfect. We disinfected everything, every moment that they touched anything. It worked out really well. The staff, we felt good about it. Any other questions?
Good. That's great. I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah.
All right. Not hearing any more questions.
I got a quick
Oh,
question.
go ahead.
With the attendance being so low on some of these classes, are drop-ins still available for these classes?
No, because drop-in, we don't have any drop-ins because we're going with the guidelines of the governor, which is to keep the same family unit. So people that sign up are going to stay together for, the session. Okay. So they were able to sign up until the second class, like normal, nothing different for rec programs, but it is all online. And so there's no drop-in programs.
Thanks.
Anything else? Okay.
Sorry, I had one more question.
Go ahead. Yeah.
For the contractor camps, is there somebody from the rec department that's kind of checking to make sure that they're complying with protocols?
So I checked in with, we just started a week and a half ago. So I check in with tennis. That's the biggest one. I just checked in with Kung Fu tonight. And so, yeah, not every time though, but want to make sure that they're following their prevention plans.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Subject is update on pickleball and hours of use.
So really brief report. The old hours, we've actually expanded the hours since last meeting. There was some concern over the hours, and the old hours were 9:30 to 11:30 and 4 to 6. They were 4 hours, and now we've expanded it to 6 hours. Because of summertime, they're able to play earlier. So now they're playing 8 to 11 and 4:30 to 7:30. So it gets, it's a little bit cooler times in the morning and the evening. So that was taken into consideration. Do you have any questions about pickleball? Just briefly, the city, we're doing some more mitigation efforts with testing out sound and some sound barriers with fencing. And that's all to report on that.
Who made the decision about the revising the hours?
The city.
City council, right? Or was it?
The city manager and then city council.
Yeah.
Weighed in on it, and there was no objection.
And I just jumped on the call if James Vega, if I can jump in. So yeah, exactly. So we have talked about it with the city council, and they wanted to be considerate and be extra careful during the quarantine, particularly. So they asked that we limit the hours, and I had a little bit of discretion there based on when we first started, it was cooler, and then I went out one day and saw several players drenched in sweat, and we decided to try to move the hours around a little bit. So far it seems like most of the residents have been appreciative of that that are near there, and then the players were definitely happy to get the earlier and the later hours to get out of the heat. So it seems to be a decent compromise. Probably no one's 100% happy with it, but.
Thanks, James.
Thank you.
Any other questions from commissioners or comments on this item?
No.
Okay.
Oh,
Go ahead.
Oh.
Go ahead, Brian.
Sorry. So, I mean, we're still getting a lot of public comment that the hours are not enough. I recognize the city's, trying to balance different interests here, but is there any consideration about kind of using more of those afternoon hours? I mean, even if it's hot out, if people want to play, like, they can play tennis during those hours.
Yeah, there's so many. It's funny, it's strange to say that some of these things are being impacted by coronavirus, but we're finding that everything is impacted by coronavirus right now. And so, it seemed like everything was opening back up. And part of the logic was if people are stuck at home and it's bugging some people, then we wanted to be considerate. Things started opening up, so we started expanding some hours and things. And but now with the recent order yesterday from the governor, that's the first step back. We just don't know. We don't know what is going to happen over the next couple of weeks. So I think the long-term plan is to kind of keep adjusting these hours and finding the right fit, and then also wrapping in the sound mitigation. But it's difficult to say what the time frame for that is right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is the time frame for testing out the sound barriers?
Yeah, so we actually ran a very simple test. We bought, or we have some Acoustafence is what the material's called, and we ran a simple demo of that about maybe 2 months ago, and we didn't feel like we got the results we wanted. So we are trying a different configuration. Probably, I would have said in the next 2 weeks, but we ended up spending a lot of time this week trying to get businesses closed up and things. So I would say within the next 3 to 4 weeks, we'll have another demo.
Great. Thanks.
James, would it be possible when it's up and going to just shoot all of the commissioners an email just so they would know that would be a good time just to come and check out what's going on?
For sure.
Okay,
We'll do that.
That'd be great.
Yeah, we did the last demo literally at the height of the lockdown, so we didn't have anybody but the 3 staff people there. So.
Fair enough. Yeah, and then that way people can come at their when it's convenient for them, and we don't need to go together.
For sure. Thank you.
Thanks, James. All right. Any other questions or comments on this item before we move on? All right.
No.
Go ahead. Did someone say, Susie?
No, I was just going to say no comment.
Okay. Thank you. So we're on to item C, which is composition of the Parks and Recs Commission. And I will just start with, this partially came up because I was meeting with James and Renee, and I brought up the possibility of possibly bringing down our commission from 7 to 5 and a non-voting youth member, because as we know right now, we are down 2 commissioners as it is, and we haven't always had a lot of candidates. So I threw it out there, and then council also talked about it and brought it up, and so now we brought it back here to have a discussion about it amongst the commissioners here. And James, if you'd like to say anything about it, feel free, or Renee.
Yeah, I'll just add quickly that the council did talk about it. They had made the planning commission 5 last maybe 6 months ago, and they're liking how that has worked. So they brought it up and talked about having both Parks and Rec and Historic Preservation become 5 as well now. So the current direction from council was to return at the next city council meeting on the 14th with a draft ordinance that would make them 5. So that's the current plan. But a couple council members had asked, just general, if there were any concerns or if, the commissions were in favor of it as well.
So any
I
comments?
just had a question.
Go ahead, Susie.
Yeah, I have a question about the composition. If we're going from 7 to 5 on voting with the non-voting youth member representative, what will constitute a quorum? Will the youth member be counted to have a quorum, or will it just be on the 5? Meaning
the way we've drafted it and proposed it for now is 3 voting members would have to be present.
Okay, great. Thank you for clarification.
Thank you.
Why not have the youth member be a voting member as part of the 5?
I think that's kind of my experience, is that just follows the general voting guidelines. Age plays a factor, and there's, I don't know what the guidelines are, but I would surely think that there's a high probability of influence on a youth member over an adult.
And I'll say I had recommended it as an option. We had laid out a couple options, and I'd recommended it because that was my prior experience with youth commissioners, was that they were non-voting members, but we didn't have a full discussion of that at the council level. So it's something that if you have feedback on it, we can take that feedback back to them.
My only concern with making a youth member a voting member of the commission is that it depends on your representative. Some of them are great and they're at every meeting and very available. And then we've had other commissioners over the years who've participated a lot, but then had other things come up and weren't able to. So you become, it takes the pressure off the youth commissioner. If it's more than they can do, then they are not impacting the commission. And so right now we've had really great participation in our last few youth commissioners, and it would be fine. But I just am concerned that could be a problem at some point.
I think that's a lot of pressure on a youth to put them potentially as a swing vote on some type of controversial issue. I think that, again, there's at that age where there's the high probability of influence from either, outside sources, parents, whatever. It just seems highly inappropriate to put a youth in that position.
So, go ahead. Anybody other comments?
I'd say personally I had mixed feelings. I think I agree about the participation and concerns about that. And historically, youth commissioners have, like you said, not always been here. The influence thing, I don't know. It seems like in the past we've had a youth commissioner. We've had great reason for it. They've been a voting member. I don't see why we just throw them out over a concern like that without a big discussion, if that's really a concern.
Yeah, I share your thoughts on that. My concern is more for just the ability to be there and being part of the quorum and all of that. It's just difficult because if we can't have 6, we have to have 5. 7 seemed like recently a bit of a struggle for the commission, and I've been on this when it was 5, and I've been on it when it's been 7, and it works both ways when it's working, but when we're having a hard time getting quorums and having everyone present, it becomes difficult to have a 7-person. As far as the youth commissioner voting or non-voting, Eric, do you have any feedback? Anybody, any thoughts?
I'm pretty indifferent. I mean, it's a case-by-case basis when it comes to youth commissioners. They can be influenced. They can't be influenced. Just like any of us, I suppose. It's whether it's too much of a responsibility. We have to remember that we're just an advisory committee mostly. So it's, take that into consideration and look at the bigger picture, as well as the 5 and 7. I'm also indifferent. We can make it work with 7. We can make it work with 5. It's just a case by case. Whether or not we have participants that are really committed. So, like I said, I'm on the fence. I'm indifferent. I'll go with whatever is recommended.
Okay.
And I support the move to 5. I think 7's a lot of extra management when we're trying to fill a lot of places.
All right. So 5, we are all in agreement on, or we can all be okay with going to 5 without a problem. The question is whether it's a voting youth or a non-voting youth. And I don't think that all of us agree on that. And I think the report back to council is the 5, yes. Whether the youth is voting or not, would depend upon whether, for one, if that's okay to have a voting, if you can have a voting youth. I don't know if there are regulations that make it so that only adults can vote. I don't know. I haven't seen that anywhere, but that would be, one concern. But so I think, James, is that enough to go back with? You're comfortable with the discussion?
Or James, do you have any information to weigh in on the youth commission issue?
I don't have any. So we've had voting youth commissioners, so I'm not aware of any, legal restriction. But I do think I could see some of the concerns raised, and I think that they're worth considering. So I think when we take it back to the city council, we'll report back and say that that there's general support for the 5. There's a question about how to handle the youth commission, and then we'll let the council discuss it. So.
All right, sounds good. Any other questions or comments before we move on? Okay, not seeing anyone raising their hand or talking. We will move on. Information items. Number 9, recreation report.
I think the COVID information is mainly the recreation report.
Okay. Commissioner reports and comments. Does anyone have anything?
I've got
I have nothing to report.
Nothing.
Okay.
I mean, nobody's spending money on polls, so I can tell you we're kind of at a standstill. The school district has other things to worry about right now, as far as a coalition with the city in that regard. So nothing.
Thank you, Eric. And I have nothing to report. Okay. Future agenda items. Anyone have anything that they're hoping to talk about, hear about, have a report back on?
I'd like to know if we're exploring any future sites or alternate sites for pickleball, given the concerns that we're facing. Is that on the radar? Collaborating with the county to use Phil Park or any other locations? Where are we at with that?
Nothing that I know of is happening on that front.
I would say we're looking at the sound mitigation as the first option, and then depending how that goes, we may move on from there.
So can we have that as a future agenda item for next month to have an update on sound mitigation and keep the commission up to date so we're not inundated with a ton of information to process, the day before or the day of?
Okay.
Would you want that Susie, would you want that as a separate future agenda? Then
I think it should be definitely on the agenda for next month to discuss. And then I think that specifically on that topic, if there's ongoing correspondence coming in about that, I think I know I'd like to be informed just to know, so I don't have to go through so much material, right before the meeting. I'd kind of like to have it in real time. Is that possible?
Just to let you know, they just all those emails came in this morning and this afternoon.
Okay.
All of them.
Yeah. Okay. I think it should be on a standing on the agenda for next month to discuss. And then if we're going to do the sound mitigation as phase 1, great. And then at least if it's an agenda item, we can have more open discussion about it at the next meeting.
Okay.
I agree.
Yep. So pickleball as a topic with 2 items underneath it, which are sound mitigation and alternative sites at this time. Does that sound right?
Ongoing correspondences too. I have 3 under that item.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
And we will look for communications from the city on when the sound mitigation panels are installed so that we can go and take a look and sit outside and hear it and experience it ourselves. Okay, I don't have any other additional agenda items, so.
Can we briefly talk to Greg about what he's doing or what Public Works is doing in regard to park improvements while the playgrounds are closed? Like, for example, I know we may not have the budget for it, but we had discussed at some point of replacing the grass hill. I mean, now'd be a good time since it's closed. Repairing the misters or upgrading the misters, things of that nature.
Okay, that's a good question. We could definitely get that on there. And
So adding another topic for under public work report for park maintenance.
mm-hmm. or specific improvements. You might want to list those too, because they are things that have been discussed to be done, and it is an opportune time to do them.
And Eric, I'm sorry, you said the grass area?
Yeah, the artificial grass hill needed to be replaced.
Yeah.
And then also the misters needed to be either repaired or upgraded, one of the two.
I'm sorry, what was the second one?
The misters, the water misters. It's kind of a moot point right now, but I mean, they're constantly breaking. They've gone through, I think, 2 different mechanisms for turning them on. Yeah. They were talking about either upgrading them or repairing them again.
They had some. I think they had some ideas they talked about. Greg talked about before. Yeah.
It's a bummer we can't get them, take advantage of it being closed to get that operating properly before we reopen it.
Yeah, I think that's a good agenda item, and I think those are good questions. So that'd be a good thing to have answered, get some answers to next month. All right. Anything else?
I have nothing else to contribute.
All right. If that's everything, we will adjourn our meeting at an all-time record of it will be 6:46 for adjournment. So well done, everyone.